In every small town, there are stories of young love, romances that blossom in high school, filled with promises of forever. For most, those relationships fade with time, becoming bittersweet memories. But for one quiet community in America, young love didn't fade, it exploded. What began as an innocent teenage romance turned into a nightmare that would haunt Millstone for decades. This is the story of Emily Carter and Ryan Miller, a love that spiraled into obsession, control, and ultimately, murder. Millstone was the definition of small-town America. A few blocks of mom-and-pop shops lined Main Street, where locals gathered for coffee and gossip. The high school football team was the town's pride and joy, and weekend games were social events that pulled in the entire community. It was a town where doors were left unlocked, where neighbors waved from their porches, and where people believed they knew each other's secrets. But beneath Millstone's quiet charm, tragedy was brewing. Emily Carter, just 17, was a bright light in Millstone. Petite, with brown hair that fell to her shoulders, she was known for her warm smile and kind heart. Teachers admired her dedication, especially in art, where she excelled. She dreamed of becoming a graphic designer or painter, and she carried her sketchbook everywhere she went, filling it with portraits of friends, landscapes, and abstract colors that reflected her imagination. Emily wasn't just talented, she was deeply loved. Her parents described her as gentle and responsible, someone who made their lives brighter every single day. Her friends called her the listener of the group, always the one you could go to when things fell apart. She had her entire future ahead of her. But the path she was on would never be realized. Ryan Miller was everything small towns idolized in young men. Tall, athletic, and handsome, he was Millstone High's star running back. Coaches believed he had a shot at a college scholarship, maybe even beyond. Parents saw him as a role model, the kind of boy any girl would be lucky to date. But Ryan carried something darker behind the charm. Friends noticed his temper, especially when things didn't go his way. He was competitive to the point of obsession, and he struggled with rejection, even small ones. When he and Emily began dating in her junior year, people thought it was the perfect pairing, the artist and the athlete, the sweet girl and the golden boy. But as the months passed, the cracks began to show. At first, Emily was flattered by Ryan's attention. He picked her up from school, walked her to class, and constantly reminded her how much he cared. But slowly, his affection turned into control. Emily's friends began to notice that she rarely came out with them anymore. She admitted Ryan didn't like her spending time away from him. He would question her about texts, ask who she was with, and sometimes get angry if she didn't answer his calls quickly enough. To outsiders, they still looked like the perfect couple: homecoming photos, football games, late-night milkshakes at the diner. But Emily confided in a friend that she felt trapped. Ryan's jealousy was suffocating her. By early spring of her senior year, she made a decision: she was going to break up with him. On the evening of March 18, 2011, Emily told her parents she was meeting a study group to prepare for midterms. It was nothing unusual. She left the house around 7 p.m., carrying her backpack and sketchbook. But Emily never came home. When midnight came and went with no word from her daughter, Emily's mother called her phone, straight to voicemail. Panic set in. By 1:30 a.m., her parents contacted police, reporting her missing. Within hours, the community mobilized. Neighbors, classmates, and even strangers joined search parties, combing streets, fields, and wooded areas. Posters with Emily's smiling face were taped to shop windows and telephone poles. The town prayed for a miracle. Instead, they would find horror. At dawn the following morning, a jogger on the outskirts of Millstone made a gruesome discovery. Lying among the trees was the body of a teenage girl. She had been stabbed multiple times. When investigators arrived, they quickly confirmed what Emily's parents had feared: this was their daughter. The brutality of the attack told detectives something important: this wasn't random. It was personal. Police immediately focused on Emily's closest relationships. Who would want to hurt such a kind, gentle girl? Friends pointed to Ryan. Detectives brought him in for questioning. Ryan claimed he hadn't seen Emily that night. He said he was home, playing video games. But his timeline didn't match. His phone records placed him near the wooded area where Emily was found. A search of his truck revealed blood on the back seat, blood that lab tests later confirmed belonged to Emily. Fibers matching her sweater were also discovered. Ryan's story unraveled. And soon, so did his composure. After hours of interrogation, Ryan broke down. He confessed. That night, Emily had called him, asking to meet. She wanted to talk. He picked her up in his truck, and they drove to the woods, a spot that had once been theirs. There, Emily told him the words he couldn't bear: she was ending the relationship. Ryan claimed he lost control. He begged her not to leave him, but when she stood firm, he snapped. In a fit of rage, he pulled a pocketknife from his truck and stabbed her again and again. When he realized what he had done, he panicked, left her body in the woods, and drove home, trying to wash away the blood. News of Ryan's arrest stunned Millstone. The boy who once represented the town's hopes for glory under the Friday night lights was now accused of a brutal murder. The courtroom was packed when the trial began. Prosecutors portrayed Ryan as controlling and obsessive, someone who couldn't accept rejection. They argued that Emily's death was no accident, it was premeditated by a young man who believed if he couldn't have her, no one could. The defense tried to argue that Ryan had simply snapped in the heat of the moment, but the forensic evidence and the brutality of the attack left the jury unconvinced. Ryan Miller was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. The town of Millstone would never be the same. Emily's family, shattered but determined, created a scholarship in her name for young artists, a way to keep her spirit alive. At her high school, a mural was painted of Emily with her sketchbook in hand, surrounded by colors she never had the chance to put on canvas. Her parents spoke openly about the dangers of controlling relationships, hoping Emily's story would help other young people recognize red flags before it was too late. For Ryan, the golden boy once destined for success, life ended behind prison walls. For Emily, life ended in a wooded patch of her hometown. And for Millstone, innocence itself ended with them. Love is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to bring joy, growth, and hope for the future. But when love turns into control, obsession, and possessiveness, it can become something dangerous, something deadly. Emily Carter's story is more than just a tragedy, it is a warning.